great to have you here. In addition to dropping the mic right away, Angie and I are also really great friends. And we met through a networking group. And so you just never know who you will meet today that will continue to be friends throughout the rest of your lives. And it's a pleasure and a joy. And I can't wait. So we're going to get right into it. And my first question today is, give me one pro and one con of starting your business in Minnesota. We're here, we're grounded, we're all in Minnesota, right? So give me one pro and one con.
Pro, the community of Minnesota. I think there's nothing else like it that I've seen around in my travels either, and in really entrepreneurial hotspots. Minnesota supports its entrepreneurs in a way by celebrating them, and we felt, we're from Mankato, and we were in outer state, and people just bought our products because it was ours. And I think you don't necessarily get that in other places. So con, we're in Minnesota. So the coasts don't necessarily, the coastal buyers, maybe coastal money, it doesn't maybe really take it seriously, or they just don't look here for entrepreneurship until you kind of make yourself known.
And I think that's one reason that we're all gathered here today, right? Has anybody had that experience? Raise your hand. Come on, help me out. We're first. It's early morning. So one of the reasons that we're here today is how are we continuing the entrepreneurship ecosystem and creating it stronger to be able to do that. So that's awesome. So tell me, what have been the key ingredients to your recipe for success?
Well, I think partnership is one of those ingredients. And let me just say, Dan, my husband, Dan Bastian, and I did this together. And that was our first partnership. We thought that we liked each other a whole lot, and we did. And we wanted to build a business together and bring our kids along. And think about it. In the beginning, you have all these sort of pie in the sky, like, we're going to do this, and it's going to be so fun to be together. And then 16 years later, you're still together in the trenches, working in the business, sharing an office. So that partnership leads to, for me and for us, into other partnerships. But we understood kind of how to do that partnership, both privately and publicly in the business sector. But then that led to us committing and recommitting to the business, to the relationship. Does it work? How is it working? How does the business work? So I think the partnership, the commitment, and then I would say you really have to learn how to create relationships external to your company. As well as internal in your company. And I think building relationships helps the company that you're building be seen the way you want it to be seen. It makes it very personal. It makes connections. I mean, if you can think about those connections with the people that you're trying to, not just the buyer, but the buyer's name, not just this person that you maybe have an opportunity to get financing from, just to understand what they're looking for. And in terms of how to create that, you have to make sure that you understand that you have to find a way to get other people than yourself to care about your business on multiple levels. And so building that relationship is really important in getting your vision to be seen by others.
How do you do that, Ange?
Well, the way we did it, we didn't have social media back when we started the business in 2001. So our experience of building a direct relationship is different than today. But the way that we did it, and we are a CPG company, or we were, we made relationships, forged relationships in the context of where our product lived. And for us, that was Lunds & Byerly's, or The Wedge, or Cub Food. And we got to know the managers. We got to know the people on the floor that would give us a call and say, hey, you're running low on product, and we'd show up. And we would show up from Mankato with a truckload of our, which you can't do anymore, but that's how we did it. And the our business number was Dan's cell phone. So Dan's cell phone was on every single package of Angie's BOOMCHICKAPOP until 2011. So because we wanted to know, and for a while. We contemplated taking it off, but as the business grew, we just said, you know what, we'll handle it. Like, we want the complaints to come to us. We want when the truck driver pulls up and looking for a dock time to pick up popcorn, that he is shocked and surprised that the owner is actually answering his call. It's a tremendous sacrifice for entrepreneurs to have that kind of accessibility to everybody and everything, but I think it was an absolute key to our success.
Yeah, let's talk about that sacrifice for a little bit. It's obviously an interesting space. When you have a product, you need to get sales to get, people interested, but you can't get sales if you're not in. So wind us the clock back just a little bit more, and what were the things you think that made people say yes?
Early in the business, well, Dan and I started out in our garage in a tent doing concessions, more or less, popping in front of the Metrodome, popping in front of grocery stores, things like that. It was a very sort of personal. We sold our product directly to the person that gave us the money. They were talking to us, and we got direct sort of feedback from our consumers at the time, and we took that feedback to heart. Not every time did we do exactly what they wanted, like put more salt on it or change the recipe or things like that, but we listened. And then I think, we translated that into an opportunity with the buyer at Lunds and Byerly's. And, we took that opportunity, which he gave us, and we just said, can we start small so that we can prove ourselves that we have a product that people want and that might sell? And this would have been 2004, 2005, so a long time ago. And it was just in the beginning when there was, this localization of products, support from companies that were interested in supporting entrepreneurs, and this is a way they could do it. But in our mind, we had to prove something to somebody and to ourselves that, this is not just that we could do this, but the product can sell. And so I would say from the very first stage, it was about sales for us. We have to prove that we belong in 3 Lunds and Byerly stores. Like, we just have to prove it. At Burnsville, Egan, and I think 50th and France were our first 3. And then we had St. Peter Food Co-op. And so what we had a scale that 2 of us, more or less, could support. And so every weekend we were in there testing our product with consumers again by doing demos and having direct contact with the people that were interested or buying. And what we didn't understand is that being in those places also gave us an entree into data that we had no idea existed. So I think the important thing is you got to sell something for people to take notice. And if you can sell something and you can sell it at the volume and at the scale of whatever it is that you're operating, whether it's in 3 stores or 5,000 stores, you've got to sell. And so you've got to be able to support that product. And initially, what I would say is that we just thought our interest in getting other opportunities to sell was word of mouth. What we didn't understand in CPG is that your SKU data, there's a little scan, the ICD-9 code, or the code is on the back, and every bit of that data is registered somewhere, and somebody in private equity or somebody in any kind of strategic is looking at that data. And so every weekend when we were there supporting our product, we would outsell every single salty snack in the category. And so there would be a spike in our data, and that got the attention of investors. And so we just leveraged that, and it got the attention of the Lunds and Byerly's buyer. They started expanding. It got the attention of other grocery chains. Kowalski's came on board. It then, that sales data then leveraged additional opportunity that we just built incrementally.
I think Angie's also being a little humble, and I had the opportunity of knowing her through some of this. She also has an incredible amount of energy, a passion for her business like no other. She is magic and worked her tail off and sacrificed to be able to get that, the belief so strong in what she was going to do and what she was going to accomplish, along with the science that she talked about. That is the art, too, of being able to do it. And it was truly magical to watch. And hopefully you get an opportunity to talk to her one-on-one. And I think you'll see some of that magic come through as well. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, let's get into the financing side. Obviously, over 20-some years, you had a lot of different stages of finance. But we're going to focus on kind of the very beginning, the early years of financing. Can you take us through that?
We didn't have any money. So we had an idea, and we thought, let's pop kettle corn and make a little extra money on the side. And so it seemed like a relatively small investment, and it was about $10,000. We used 0% credit cards to finance our first investment in the business, and then it was our goal to just keep putting all the money that we made, which was a cash business at the time, all of it back in. The issue with that is that we needed more equipment. The more we grew, we needed more fuel. The more we grew, we kept getting deeper and deeper into credit card debt. But that's what we used to leverage the growth of our business in the first 3 years. At some point, we had a family friend who was an accountant. And up until that point, I was doing QuickBooks, and I, at midnight after I put the kids to bed and after I did my 2 other jobs, still nursing for the county and the state hospital. And Dan drove the business, started building the production plant, started hiring people as we needed them. And, it was chaos, right? It was just chaos, and we didn't have time to really do a whole lot other than we wanted to raise our children, and we wanted to create this college fund for them. But here we had this business growing, and we needed funding. We needed capital to get it to continue to grow. So John Wolf came in and said, hey, I just looked at your books. You're kind of too far into debt. I'm going to give you a loan. He gave us a loan of $50,000 at 8% interest. It didn't take an equity position. He said, I don't want an equity position, but just get these credit card debts under order and just keep doing what you're doing. We paid that off in about 6 months. And in the meantime, we were financing the growth through our cash flow. And we needed a building to move into because we had outgrown our rental space. We had capital that was that we got access to through community economic development with the North Mankato Port Authority, and they put together a package for us that helped us buy a building that was our new production plant, and we outgrew that space in about 16 months. So then we had a building we didn't know what to do with, but we used that to leverage to get a little bit more capital. And each step along the way, we had banks for sure that said, no, you're not a good risk. We moved into a 20,000, this was in 2007, into a 20,000 square foot warehouse that we started to build out a production facility that we thought could last for a very long time. And I think we probably had a half a dozen, maybe more banks in Mankato that said no to us. And we thought, we might be done. We still had commitment. So, I mean, in the sense that Dan and I said to each other, like, do we want to keep trying or are we done? And both of us said, we want to keep trying. Let's go. Let's figure out. We ended up calling, and this has to do with relationship. We ended up calling our babysitter's father, who was a branch manager for one of the banks, on a Sunday evening. And we just said, Jerry, do you think it's possible? And he said, come in Monday morning. And we did. And they put together an SBA loan for us that then helped us finance the next level of investment in early 2007. And we were not a good investment, I would say. And we were...
at the time.
Well, yeah, and nobody knows.
Now I think
right?
we were pretty good.
Nobody knows, but
Right.
I mean, at that point in time, I think we were maybe $750,000 in revenue, annual revenue, but we needed 1.5 million, and we needed operating capital, and we had equipment, pieces of equipment that cost $300,000 to buy, to package. So the numbers don't add up, but because we were maybe in Mankato, because we knew the families knew each other, we were, I would just say, a character loan right then and there, and they helped us, and the SBA loan kind of came through, and we got my brother-in-law, who is an accountant, a CPA, to come and convince him to work with us, to help us on our financial piece. I took the marketing, Dan took the operations. That investment in us, had we waited, financing completely dried up by middle of 2007, and we would have been done anyway. So somebody took a risk on us, and we were all in again, and then we began to grow once again. But we've had multiple plateaus like that. And of course, Dan and I were personally leveraged again. We had everything on the line, personal guarantees. There were times where, and I think I've said this in public before, but it's the truth. If everything went south, we'd owe a lot of people a lot of money, and we would pay them back. And we could move in with our parents and have a minivan, because that wasn't, we'd get the kids to and from school. But that's the level of commitment that we had, that, not that we didn't think that could happen. We knew it could, but it wasn't going to happen. Like, in our mind, that's not happening. But it's a consideration that everybody tells you could happen. For us, it wasn't going to happen.
Is anyone feeling the stress and anxiety just by listening to her? Really? I'm reliving my own as well. So I get it. But the commitment was real, and we are all so grateful that you continued that, for sure. And went on to 2 exits, the first by a private equity firm, and the second, and stayed on, re-upped, and then the second to a strategic buyer, Conagra Foods. Can you tell us something we should know about that? I mean, you don't have to talk about each of them, but what should we know about exits?
Well, we had a small private equity firm, operated a little bit more like a VC, out of Boston in 2011. That was our first partnership. They discovered us. They talked to us about what it means to get investors. Before that, we were a family business, didn't really understand what that meant, really, to have investors. And that what that meant is that at some point in time, you're going to sell your business, because for us, people want to realize some appreciation and gain. So in that first education for us was like, oh, okay, so we have to be all right with letting go of the business at some point in time. Like, we're not passing it down to our children if this is the decision that we made. And I think at that point, we were both tired. We didn't need the money because the company was profitable, but we needed their network. We needed the connections that they had. We needed them to help us build a professional sales team and a professional marketing team. We knew that we had gotten the business to this place, and fine, your money's great, we do need that, and we know we're gonna need it in the future, but we need more than that from you right now. And we needed a really tight relationship. We also needed them to help us realize some pretty important things that we had said out loud. And we had said we wanted our success to be our people's success. But we didn't know what that meant. But what it meant was they helped us create an employee equity pool, which was about 10% of the valuation of the company, that we used as retention and recruitment mechanisms within the company. And Dan and I applied that first engagement that we had very broadly within the company. And so that was for us, that switch from somebody wants to like buy you, invest in you, like what is that? Okay, so we understood that. And then once that deal is done, which was, they came in a minority position, now we're together and now you're married to another business. And that's how I thought about it. So we didn't always agree on the direction or necessarily how to go about do it, but we agreed on the goals, like the sales number, the needs that we needed within the company. And it took sometimes a while for us to work out that level of partnership from organization to organization. But it took absolute communication, broadly open communication that created a very dynamic and workable relationship to create success that then led to the next private equity investment in a much larger scale, which was TPG Growth at the time out of San Francisco. And that's when you were referring to, we sold the whole business at that point.
3 exits, or three investors.
Yeah. And that's when we sold the business in whole. Dan and I reinvested. We built a new management team, and we formed a new board, and Dan and I sat on the board. And in both of those exits, employees realized their liquidity of their shares. And let me just say that was the 3 days of my entire career, is to see the joy in our employees that sort of took a risk on us early on. Like, we had hockey coaches and we had people that had never worked in food before, and they grew with the job and grew with the company. And, those 3 days before exit, we say, here are the shares that we aren't sure we're ever going to be worth anything, but here's what they're worth now. And on the other side of that table, there were tears, there were whoops, it was amazing. And I think for Dan and I, we had created this thing to create a college fund for our children. And on those days, we realized, hey, you know what? We created quite a few college funds right here. And it was really emotional for us.
Can we give?
Yeah, it was great.
So obviously tech is hot, devices are hot, but consumer packaged goods, right? Sometimes there's this feeling that they can't produce the venture rates or rate of return that others. What would be your reflection on that?
Well, you're right. It can't really compete with tech in terms of, percentage on return. But, it's the founders that are in food and beverage, they're there passionately. They're there because they're kind of and I don't mean this to be because I'm an everyday person. They're everyday people that are passionate about something, about the way the food is, or the way that farming happens, or the way that people eat or care for themselves, or the community that's built around food. And they need a way to create. And I think business is an amazing way for everyday people to create something of value and to take that value and create a broader scope. Like 20 years ago, gluten-free was, maybe there would be a few products, but there were people that believed in gluten-free as a sector within a broad scope of food. And I think everybody eats, everybody consumes, and so it looks like there might not be any white space to grow, and it looks like maybe there's nothing new created here, but I think this is the space where really, the practical and the creative come together with passion and commitment, because people are often driven by their personal ideals of what they can do. And this is the space where that happens. Like, we didn't invent popcorn, right? Like, we didn't invent popcorn at all. We just found a new way to deliver something that works in people's lives. And, and then it's talking to that audience, positioning the product correctly, and giving it something that you feel strongly about, or however, talking about your product and your company in a way that you find a connection to an audience, find a connection to people that want it and are interested in what you're doing.
Okay, I'm going to ask Ange one question, but I'm giving you a warning. Then I'm going to turn it to you to ask some questions. So don't make a monkey out of me. Please think of a question in a minute. But Ange, why do you think, what is the importance of angel investing?
Here's what I think it could be is, it's not just about the money. The entrepreneurs, believe me, need money to survive and to grow. I mean, they can survive. They need money to grow. It is the fuel that helps them deliver on their promise to whatever it is that they created. And I think most entrepreneurs believe in themselves. They believe in themselves and their products. They just need somebody to believe with them and in them. And they need validation. And the way that happens is through consumers buying the product. And if they can prove that there is some product market fit here, and they've got consumers that believe in this product, they also need capital. They need investors to believe in the product and in them and in their commitment. And I would say whenever we had that happen to us, it just felt like a re-energizing to the business, re-energizing to us. It felt validating in that we're doing something that matters and that people believe in us. And I think it's hard. It's not the easy. There's no ROI on that believing in something or someone or doing it for a reason other than that. But that's what matters to entrepreneurs. They need to find a way to get people to believe in them. And when that happens, it's like super juice. Entrepreneurs can go for miles on a tank of gas. And if you can help them fill that tank, they can go farther than, a regular tank of gas would take you.
It's pretty awesome. ROI on belief. I'm going to take that away and ponder that a little bit, and I hope we all do. So with that, I'll turn it over to you. What do you want to hear about? What question do you have for Ange? Right here. Stand up, talk loud.
Bernie Stone Strategic Holdings. Bernie Stone Strategic Holdings. At what point did you take on a board, and what was that early process? What impact did it have for your business?
Good question.
Other than being successful?
Yeah. When we got institutional money, we had a board. It was Dan and my brother-in-law and myself, That was our board, and we took some notes, and, it was like, we don't have time for that, right? But when we took on institutional money, they helped us create a board. They were in a minority position, so they took 2 seats and appointed an independent. We took 3 seats and appointed an independent. And, we met quarterly. We did a lot more talking than just on the board level. They had their managing partners there. And, it was very helpful because we hadn't really understood governance until that point. And I think, or understood the things that could maybe trip up entrepreneurs if you don't have access to people with experience that can help you understand how to navigate through so many things in food that can go wrong. And, or they had a network of consultants, and, and once we had the board formed, it helped give us some structure. I mean, up until that point, it's not that we were all cowboys, but we were just going, just responding, putting out fires, it was very helpful, I would say, in them helping us create that and then having a process by which we made decisions.
And in hindsight, would you have brought on a board a little earlier?
Probably, yeah. But back in my mind, I didn't have time for that. Like, I don't have time for meetings. Like, I don't have time for a bunch of talking about what we're gonna, no, we're doing things, And in between, when we aren't doing things, I have kids to raise, and we have baseball games to go to and soccer games to go to. And while one's on the field playing soccer, the other one's in Lund's doing demos, and then we switch, it was integrated. And so, in my mind, I didn't have time for a board, but it probably would have been helpful.
I think you did okay.
It worked out all right, yeah.
Yes.
So I'm Mary Kay Zinowitz from Bus Stop Mamas, and just yesterday at my daughter's softball game, all the moms,
Can you hold it closer?
All the parents were talking about BOOMCHICKAPOP as their favorite snack. So thanks for that.
Oh.
So my question to you is the name. So to me, the name is so brilliant, and what carries you into so many conversations. BOOMCHICKAPOP is such an awesome thing to say, such a fun name. Can you talk a little bit about how you came up with the name?
Sure.
It's a fun story.
Yeah, it is a fun story. Okay, this happened when we entered into a relationship with institutional money. We had the board. They were like, you need to rebrand. You need to change the packaging. And as a founder, you only see your product the way you see it. And I'm like, why do you want it? Like, why? What?
Because before BOOMCHICKAPOP, it was
Angie's Kettle Corn, right? We were just Kettle Corn, but we wanted to be something
cute
bigger.
name, I think.
But they started asking questions. And as founders, we were like, well, I don't know, because you initially feel defensive about what you already have. But then, as we began to talk, I'm like, I need to just go into stores and look and understand, because that's actually how we named the product originally. It got Angie's because we went to look to see what popcorn was called, and at the time it was Vicks and Orville and Cracker Jack, and I was like, there are no popcorn women on the shelf. And so my husband said, let's just name it Angie's. Fine, okay, Angie's. That's how I got it's Angie's name. So what we didn't understand, though, at the time was that we had created, a female-facing brand, and I became sort of the face of that. But the packaging was very masculine in its color palette, and it was recessive. And so, and I think that's what Sherbrooke was responding to. They're like, it needs to pop a little bit more. So 2011 is when we went back to shelves or back to the context where the product lives, and just to understand what is happening here. And what was happening is one of our competitors had just come onto the market, and they were kaboom, they were eating our lunch. And we were like, we're going to compete. Like, we got to do something now. Like, we're going to change this now. So we hired Mono here in town, and they had this brilliant young group of marketers. We said, we need to compete. We're not going to do it in the same way, because I'm a little pissed that they're speaking to women in the way that they, speaking to them, because it implies that women are dieting all the time. And, and then there's this other food that looks to be very permissive, but it's all very masculine in its color palette. And then there's these other packages that are sort of playful, and they look like they're speaking to children and kids. But so look how marketers are speaking to women. And I'm personally annoyed by this. And so this was the brief. We're going to do it differently. We want to speak, okay, we'll offer that product, but we want to do it in a different way. And oh, by the way, we don't have any money for advertising. So this package has to do a lot for us in 2.5 seconds as someone goes through the grocery store. So it has to, these brilliant creative people, well worth the investment at the time, although everybody in the finance department said, this is getting kind of expensive. And what's the ROI on marketing anyway? And I was like, just give us a chance here. We're gonna do something different. And they came up with 5 different names, and all of them boring except one, and it was BOOMCHICKAPOP. And we all started laughing, and there was immediate energy in the room, because what I wanted was energy around the name of the product, coming from a position of empowerment versus reductionistic. Hey, this is for you, this is your food, this is how you should be, this is how you should look. I don't know, I don't like that. So let's do it differently. And that's where I would say, never, as a founder, never discount your unique perspective, because the way you think is obvious maybe isn't how other people think. And so take that and drive that in a way that creates change. And so they took BOOMCHICKAPOP to us, and we were like, oh, that's interesting. And we had an analyst at the end of the table that was eavesdropping on the whole meeting, because on those days we worked in one single table. And he said, after these 24-year-old creatives left, he said, BOOMCHICKAPOP is 70s porn. And you can't, we were like, oh, we can't do 70s porn, right? But just like that, there's energy in the room, and we were like, okay, yes, we're on the right track. We went back to them, said, we love that, connect it to the product, give us the package, let's see what happens. They came back with BOOMCHICKAPOP, bright yellow package from commencing the project to release was 4.5 months. And from January to May, we rolled out that bright yellow bag as fast as we could. And this was the first test, by August, that grocery size yellow bag, we promoted it, we gave it some oomph to get behind it, but it got distribution on the East and West Coast that we never would have gotten because of the name, because of the package, because of the marketing and the promotional activity that we put behind it. By August, it was our #1 selling SKU, and that was after 9 years of business. And so the answer for us was like, okay, we're doing this whole brand transition one SKU at a time. And that's what BOOMCHICKAPOP is. For me, it was reclaiming 70s porn. That it belongs to us now.
And empowerment of women.
And female empowerment.
Yes. As we wrap up, can you just give us a sneak peek into what your next chapter is?
Yeah, it's really hard. Once you sell your company, you're so used to go, 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 you don't know when to stop. And it's an adjustment. So the first couple of years we went go, go, go still. And Dan and I are kind of settled down. We have done some investing ourselves. We have also, I've helped with a non-for-profit that's operating in Nicaragua that serves people who live off of farmers, actually off of less than $2 a day, that they created this small shareholder farmer network with organic and regenerative farming. And it became clear that that we could spin off a B Corp, which we spun off a B Corp. And we're selling cassava flour, both organic and and conventional cassava flour. And so we now have a network of 450 farmers in in Nicaragua. We have a production plant there. There is a school that this B Corp almost wholly supports, as well as community economic development, including building some wells and some roads, and we're looking to duplicate this model where business drives small shareholder farmer to elevate them into the middle class. And so that's what we're doing. We're looking for a second country to duplicate the model in, and it's been exciting.
She's settling down a little bit.
Yeah, it's been exciting. So if you need cassava flour, I know how to hook you up.
So good. Well, thank you for your attention today. Please give a round of applause to Angie.